This is Ed Rep Radio, presented by Eastman Music Company. This is Ed Rep Radio, a podcast to bring you ideas and information from industry experts you can use on the road every day. Presented by Eastman Music Company, and I'm your host, Shane Duell. Welcome back. I hope you all had a great back-to-school season and you're finishing up 2023 on a high note. Today's topic is something we don't always talk about in our industry, but it absolutely affects everything you do, and that is your health. As Ed Reps, you work so hard taking care of your customers, it's easy to forget that you also need to take care of yourself. Life on the road isn't always conducive to a healthy lifestyle, and after a while it can catch up to you, physically, mentally, emotionally. One of the biggest lessons you'll hear from today's episode is that if you want to be your best for others, and that includes your family, your friends, and your customers, first you have to make sure that you are making your well-being a priority so that you can be your best self. We'll learn about the importance of balance in your life, as well as tips on taking care of your body with the right nutrition and exercise. With us today is Janelle Harlan, who spent 23 years in the music industry before pursuing health coaching and fitness, and now runs her own successful business in digital marketing. Janelle Harlan, thank you so much for being here. Appreciate you taking your time.
Thanks for having me. Excited to be here.
Yeah, this is a topic that often is not really talked about. Yeah, I guess a lot of industries, and that's the topic of your health, your balance in life, things that really affect everything you do. We talk so much about being productive and being great salespeople as Ed Reps, or how to provide the best service and product knowledge and all these things that are super important. But a lot of times we just don't take a second to talk about what's really important, and that's our overall health and our balance in life. And that's a topic that's been on my mind for a while. And thank goodness for LinkedIn. Somehow I came across your profile. I'm like, worked in the music industry for a couple decades, went into health. Perfect. So thank you for agreeing to be here. And I'd like to start with a bit about you. Can you fill us in on your background through music, and then kind of where you went from there?
Sure. I played the flute in basically middle school, high school, and in my college years. I grew up in San Diego, but I moved out to the East Coast. And it was right about the time when music and arts was expanding outside of the Metro DC area. And I moved to Southern Virginia, which is where they had opened their Chesapeake store, and was looking for work. I was 21 years old, hadn't finished college, and was just, looking for a way to make some money. Ended up being sent as a temp to Music and Arts to type in rental contracts in September, the first year they were open in Chesapeake. So that's how I started with Music and Arts. The management liked my work ethic, or asked if I played an instrument. And I said, well, as a matter of fact, I do. And I was kind of, super stoked to be sent to a music store for my first gig, because I was looking to buy some music too. So getting back into play my flute, and it's perfect. So that's how I started with Music and Arts. And just over the years, learned the business. I played several roles. Ed Rep, I did affiliate service, became store manager eventually, moved up to a district manager position, first in Northern Virginia, and then was moved out to open the Denver market. So I was on the store setup team for many years, and Denver was the first market that Music and Arts opened without a vice president going out to spend time there. So it was quite an honor for me. And it got me closer west, where my family still is in San Diego. So that was great. Eventually, I left for a couple of years. The health balance, life, personal balance kind of got out of whack for me, and ended up with some health issues. And so I left, worked in the WorldCom industry for a while. So
what's that?
Well, WorldCom, it was telecommunications. So MCI, WorldCom. I was doing project management. I had to be taught how to do email, because it was kind of that generation. Email was just starting.
Yeah.
So I did that for a couple of years, but I really missed the music industry.
Hmm.
So I rejoined Music and Arts, moved out to the Frederick office, and ran the affiliate operations for a few years for Music and Arts before going back into retail as a regional manager after the Guitar Center acquisition happened,
Okay.
and traveled quite a bit across the country. I had a weird region. I had, the Western states, Texas, and then Metro DC, and managed stores in those areas. And then after a while was managing ed reps again in some of those areas. Eventually moved inside and started the online rental part of the business for the company, built the bid department,
Hmm.
and then helped establish the first woodwind brasswind call center in Frederick with Music and Arts, and then left shortly after that.
Wow. You've seen just about every aspect of a school music business, haven't you?
Yes, I have. It was a lot
It's
of
amazing.
fun.
Yeah, yeah. I think your bio said 23 years in the
Yes.
music industry. That's amazing.
Yep.
Yeah. So, what changed? You left the music industry. What
Yes.
happened?
Um, well, I think I wasn't real great at that work life balance thing we talk about,
Mm.
and trying to take care of myself. And maybe I was almost a little bit too good at work life balance because I played just as hard as I worked. So I had it in my mind I could do everything. And what was sacrificed was basically my health.
Mm.
And you don't always see it when you're younger, but as you age, it starts to become more apparent. Things affect you more. You don't recover or bounce back from that, the chronic stressors in your life. And I think that's what was happening to me.
Mm.
For example, not only was I doing all these things for music and arts and traveling and all of these things, but I very rarely thought about my sleep schedule when I booked flights.
Hmm.
I I just did what I needed to do to get the job done. And I didn't enjoy being away from home. So if I could get what I needed to get done in fewer days, I would, even if it sacrificed, my sleep,
Mm.
sacrificed meals, things like that. I taught group exercise classes on the side.
Oh.
So not only was I working a full-time schedule, I was up at 4:30 in the morning to teach a weightlifting class
Whoa.
before work, before sitting in traffic for 2.5 hours to get to a store in Metro DC,
Wow.
things like that, just
Yeah.
long days.
Yeah. You were pushing yourself, weren't you?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you don't see the signs,
Hmm.
I when you look back, or when I look back, I see a lot of signs I missed and things that could have easily been fixed.
Hmm.
And by that point, I had ended up with an autoimmune disease, so I have
Hmm.
a chronic illness that started to affect my life in big ways, obviously. And I was in and out of the hospital, things like that. And I ended up in the hospital. The last stint was I was there for a week, and I did a lot of thinking and a lot of research about how food and just basic key human needs, if those things are met and addressed and um, dialed in, a lot of the chronic illness and the things that we see in society today and that I was suffering from could be avoided.
Hmm.
So after that stint, I ended up enrolling in a health coaching school, so the Institute for Integrative Nutrition. And I had no intention of actually becoming a health coach. I just wanted to learn the things that they were teaching for my own personal benefit. And what ended up is I started to become just so drawn to it. And I knew I could impact other people. And it wasn't an easy decision to leave the music industry. It took me
Hmm.
over a year to make that decision. But I don't know. I followed my heart. I knew that's where I belonged. It was my next step.
Hmm. Yeah. It's interesting. Do you think if you hadn't pushed yourself so much, you would have been drawn to health like you were? Is it kind of those challenges you went through that really made you think, I really want to get to know this better and help other people?
Um, I think a little bit of both. I've always been drawn to health in
Okay.
that I was an athlete in school,
Oh.
and I've always been very athletic and drawn to sports. And Yeah, I can't imagine a time in my life where I wasn't exercising regularly in good shape, but just the drive that I have within me to be, I don't know, stronger and better and do a better job and be the best I could be is, something that led me down that path of being unhealthy.
Hmm.
And I saw that in so many other people. I think I wouldn't have gotten to the point of actually going into um, the health coaching, personal training type of work without my own experience.
Yeah, yeah. Hmm. That's kind of fascinating that you were a group fitness instructor, but at the same time you felt like you were unhealthy. Does that have
Yeah.
more to do with your balance in life and kind of taking care of yourself? It sounds like you're very, very driven,
Yeah.
and I think a lot of people listening are those kinds of people, super driven, and can sometimes maybe they're listening to this thinking, "Wow, yeah, maybe that's me too."
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I think anytime you have too much of anything, it's not good. I mean,
Mm,
the key to life is moderation, and I kind of I carry that over into everything. I mean, I drink alcohol, I eat sweets,
hmm,
I just do it in moderation. And that may not be possible for everybody, but for me personally, I do better with that. If I try to cut all sugar out, it doesn't work. So
yeah, yeah,
it's more what we do on a daily basis as habits that affect us and our overall health, not what we do one day of the week or, you know, one weekend out of the month or whatever it may be. But yeah, I mean, too much exercise can also be a bad thing. I mean, the level that I was lifting weights at when I was teaching, I was lifting very heavy weight on a stage, yelling at people at the same
hmm,
time and doing it on 4 hours of sleep, not eating right ahead of time, and then picking up other classes during the week because I loved it. So I was doing that, 5 days a week sometimes.
wow,
Sometimes I did 2 classes in a day, which is not recommended for weightlifting,
right,
but
right, right.
yeah,
Again,
it's a combination of being driven and I think not wanting to let people down. So a
mm,
little bit of a people pleasing tendency as well.
yeah, you just described dead reps.
Yes.
Yes. You were one, you managed dead reps,
Exactly.
you know their lifestyle too, right? Like,
Exactly.
it's it's, um it's not necessarily health inducing, this lifestyle of being an ed rep. You're spending so much time driving around. You get up early, you drive a long time, you're in and out of the car. You don't necessarily have a kitchen or, like other people have maybe a break room where they could microwave a nice meal or something. It's just go, 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 go. There's no end to it. I'm sure you remember that
Yeah.
from being on the road. And I'd like to dig in a little bit to the life balance part of this, and then we'll talk also about nutrition and maybe some how to get some exercise in your life. But I think one of the most important things for an ed rep, for anybody, is to be balanced in your life and feel healthy, feel good, and not be one extreme or another. Can you offer some tips or maybe some personal experiences about getting your life back into balance, and some tips that you could offer ed reps to head in that right direction?
Yeah, that's kind of a loaded question,
Mhm.
because making changes it's a very, very difficult thing to do, and it all has to boil down and go back to what your why is for wanting to make that change, and that's gonna be
Mm.
different for everybody,
Your why. I like that.
your why.
Yeah.
And, I mean, it's really thinking about what is your why. I know a lot of people are looking for longevity in life, but that may not be everybody's why because having a long life where you're miserable because your quality of life is miserable,
Hmm.
um, that that may not be somebody's why. I mean, my why would be wanting to feel good every single day so I don't miss out on opportunities to enjoy my life. Like if I feel I love mountain biking, let's say, well, let's say I do. um, but there have been times when I don't go because I'm tired or I don't feel good or whatever, and it's a result of some choice I made the day before. So, you know, for me, it's I don't want to miss out on experiences while I can do them. That's my why. Somebody else's why may be keeping up with their grandkids, for example. But anytime you're making a big change, you've got to know why you're making that change. And maybe it's just that you want to present your best self to the outside world every day. You want to bring the most energy. You want to bring the most you can to your relationships, whether they're personal or work relationships, whether you want to be able to better support that educator you're visiting at 7:30 in the morning.
Hmm.
You're bringing your best self at 7:30 in the morning because you're taking care of yourself and you're putting your own health forward as a priority.
Hmm. So putting your own health forward helps others, not just you.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And it's hard to do because you're changing habits that have been ingrained for a really long time, physical habits, but mental habits as well.
Hmm.
Um, it's not as fun to eat carrots as it is to eat a hamburger from
Sure.
McDonald's. And you're changing that the habits you're changing are big and ingrained, and you always have to go back to I think you always have to go back to your why to be able to stick to what you're doing until you get to the point where you realize it feels a lot better when you eat right.
Hmm.
Once you start getting the physical feelings and you feel the energy, I mean, I think most people don't even, or many people don't even realize how bad they feel
Hmm.
until they start feeling good.
That's so true. So when it comes to life balance, it feels like if you're out of balance, that also leads to burnout, right? So what are maybe some signs from people you've coached or yourself or other people you know that you're headed in that direction, that you're out of balance, you're headed for burnout? What are some signs that are like, oh, I think I probably need to get back on track?
There's a few. I mean, for me personally, it was things just weren't fun anymore.
Hmm.
So, I used to enjoy just my daily activities, the people I worked with, the job I did, my interactions. And when I started to feel like I had a short fuse, people got on my nerves, I just didn't enjoy my daily life, the simple things as much as I used to. I think that's a sign, and everybody's going to have days like that, but when it is chronic and it's been a week, a month, and you're still feeling that way, that could be one thing.
Hmm.
Just trying to get out of the bed in the morning is hard. I mean, as humans, we should naturally feel energized, not the minute we jump out of bed, but within 15 minutes, you should feel pretty good.
Hmm.
And when you're dragging all morning or dragging throughout the day, can't keep your eyes open, you can't stay focused. And again, one day is one thing, but when that happens day after day, for weeks or months, you're likely out of balance.
Hmm.
If you find yourself, and again, this is just me from experience, constantly prioritizing my work over my family
Hmm.
or my friends or even just my own personal downtime, like having no downtime, all of those things. I mean, that could be a sign too. And I think a lot of times it takes stepping back and looking in at how you're living your life every day or every month. I don't know, just kind of a few minutes to take a recap. So what did I do this past month? What's on my schedule for the next upcoming month? How am I spending my time? How do I feel? And if I would have done that more, I would have realized pretty quickly that, I was neglecting the things that were most important, which are relationships and own personal basic needs,
Hmm.
sleep.
Hmm. Did it kind
Yeah.
of slowly creep that way? Like you didn't realize it until it was like, whoa, this is really not good.
Yeah, I think so. And like I said, when you're younger, you can, bop along through life and manage it and maintain. And I think as you get older, it's harder to cover those things
Hmm.
up
Hmm.
or to still operate at the level you want to operate at when you're not taking care. of those, the basic needs.
Yeah, it just kind of builds up over time, right?
Right.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I hear you. A few years ago, a kind of a wake up call to me is my wife bought me this book called Off Balance, and she gave me this book, and I thought, huh, maybe I should read this. If my wife is handing me this book, like you need to read this, and it was really a good book. Matthew Kelly is the author. It says getting beyond the work-life balance myth to personal and professional satisfaction. It's really good. I'll put a link to this in the program notes, but uh, sometimes you realize it when someone else tells you like, hey, your life is out of balance. You need to get back to you and make
Yeah.
sure you're healthy. So interesting. As a health coach, did you see people kind of in a similar situation? Did you kind of coach them back on track?
Yes and no. So, I did a lot of that actually through my personal training.
Oh.
I worked with a lot of ambitious, women kind of in the same position. And I guess it was that and a combination of health coaching, helping them make themselves a priority. It starts to show up when you don't, things can start to show up physically,
Hmm.
for you. And a lot of times that can be, the result could be, weight gain, physical ailments, just injuries, chronic aches and pains, things like that. And I worked a lot with my clients on that.
Hmm.
It's really tough to try to convince people to make themselves a priority. But if you really focus on how that affects the people around you, it makes it a little bit easier.
Hmm. Yeah. Ed reps, they're so service oriented,
Hmm.
helping others, and they're so driven by that, and which is a wonderful aspect of who they are. And when you said make yourself a priority and you'll help others, I think that maybe will really hit some people in the right way. And that, okay, if I want to be better at servicing people, I need to be my best self and take care of myself. The as we mentioned, the ed rep lifestyle is tough to be healthy, and I'd like to talk about a couple of things you might have to suggest to them to feel better. When you think about health, a lot of times you think about diet and exercise. Can we kind of dig into one aspect at first? Maybe what can they pay attention to, or a few tips for nutrition, so they feel better on the road on a day to day basis.
Yeah, with nutrition, it's really, I mean, think about, what you're putting into your body is what you're going to get out as far as energy, fuel, and it affects more than just physical. It affects mental
Mm,
and emotional as well. But just easy things or quick things you can do. I know the fast food lifestyle so well from my old ed rep days,
mm,
but I will tell you now, if I eat a Whopper Junior or something like that, I feel like crap for the
mm,
entire day, if not 2 days, and it's just the energy level and the pit in the stomach. And I'm not saying never eat fast food because sometimes it's better than not eating anything. And I know time is of the essence as an ed rep, but there's healthier choices that you can make at fast food restaurants or even in the type of fast food restaurant you're choosing. Like,
mm,
for example, Subway is always a go-to for me if I need to eat something quick and I don't have anything on hand. But that's one thing. Prioritizing getting vegetables in however you can do that. And I always find the best ways to bring my own and have, handy, like carrots or celery or fruit, apples. You put a little bit of peanut butter on them, just little things. It does take some planning though. So having, again, you have to make that priority in your schedule of taking just a little bit of extra time of chopping these things and having them together so you can grab them quick and take them with you. Even in a bag full of nuts that you can bring, almonds, things like that, help get some healthy macros into your body. When I say macros, it's proteins, fats,
mm,
and carbohydrates. So, getting some healthier options for those things into your body.
mm. Yeah. Yeah, it does take planning, doesn't it? So packing your lunch sounds like a healthier option than just grabbing that hot dog in the gas station because that's all the time you've got, right?
Yeah, easier said than done, but,
Sure.
having just a lunchbox with a cooler option to it that you could throw an ice pack in, making your sandwich the night before, you're just trying to make it as simple as possible. If you've got a little extra time on a Sunday night, throwing things together that make it easy to put your lunch together the night before. I always found that easier than doing it the morning of. Unless you're an
Mm,
extreme morning person, you're never in a rush in the morning, and that's your zen time, then morning probably works better for you. But again, it's just getting into the habit of doing it. And I say anytime that you're trying to adopt a new habit, it's not like I am going to try to bring my lunch 5 days this week. Start with 1.
hmm,
And once you have that down, add another day in. Once you have that down, add another day in. And eventually that becomes the habit.
hmm.
And also, I don't know if you've ever heard of habit stacking.
No.
But if you have something that is already a habit in your life, so let's say the night before you always make you get the coffee pot set up so it automatically brews in the morning before you get up. So that's a habit you already have. If you habit stack, maybe that's when you also throw a sandwich together or a few snacks for the next day and
Hmm,
have them ready to go, already in your lunchbox, ready to go.
okay.
So that's habit stacking. You pair a new habit with one that's already established.
Oh, that makes sense. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. So it's not quite as hard because it's not starting totally from scratch. You're just kind of adding a little bit.
Right.
Yeah, I like that. That makes sense. What else in the world of nutrition you think would help an ed rep feel better, whether it's habits or food choices or anything like that?
One we often overlook is just simple water intake.
Hmm.
Most people don't get enough water. A good rule of thumb for water intake and how much you should have minimum is half of your body weight in ounces. So if you weigh 200 pounds, you should be drinking 100 ounces of water.
That's a fair amount.
Yep. And that's without any kind of exercise where you're sweating, like let's say uh, loading those repairs on an August day.
Yeah.
You might
Right.
want to figure in some extra water that day. But yeah, it's hard to get that much water in. So I know that the large jugs that you can take around with you, that they're actually just water bottles you buy on Amazon that even have the little markers on them.
Hmm.
So you know how much water you're drinking, have been super helpful for people. They have actually those water bottles with times of the day on there. So for
Interesting.
people who like to track and are a little more visual or competitive with themselves, it's like, oh, I need to get that amount of water down by 11 o'clock. It can be really helpful. But I mean, I think it comes down to awareness with water intake and just having fresh water available. I use refillable jugs and keep them in my truck all the time. I mean, I always have some kind of refillable jug full of water ready to go.
Hmm. So, what's the difference in how you feel when you're fully hydrated, you've drank all the water you need, versus you're not drinking enough
Yeah.
water? How do you feel different?
For me, it's an energy level.
Hmm.
So I can say when I don't drink enough water, I start to feel really sluggish. My mouth is really dry. Sometimes I have a headache. Um, yeah, all of those things. Sometimes I have stomach issues. Sometimes I'm really hungry
Hmm.
um, when I just ate. So I know when that happens, it's usually because I'm thirsty. So I'm dehydrated.
Huh.
So
Okay.
um, just gives a lot more pep in your step. And sometimes I feel, uh, that like kind of that just puffy feeling
Hmm.
all around. Like my rings get a little tighter, and things like that. And it's because it's your body trying to hold on to water.
Interesting. When you're dehydrated, you feel that way.
Hmm.
Huh.
Yes. Yes. So a lot of times when that happens, then I know I need to drink some water. So
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it shouldn't be too hard, right? Ed reps when they're in the van, just have the bottle there, just keep drinking it.
yeah, exactly.
Refill it at night. Yeah. It sounds like a simple enough.
And, some people don't like the taste of water. So, and there's some things you can do with just throwing some fruit into it.
Hmm.
Handful of berries. Some people make cucumber water. It's super simple to make. Squeezing a little lemon into water. They make electrolytes that you can add to water. You just got to be careful of the sugar intake with those.
Hmm.
But little powdered electrolytes you can just pop into your water bottle, make it more palatable for some people.
Yeah, whatever it takes to get it down.
Yeah.
Okay. So, beverages that, gosh, you walk into a gas station, it's like half the wall is energy drinks. And some of these have a crazy amount of caffeine in it, a crazy amount of sugar. I mean, and if you're an ed rep and you just need that pep in your step and you just need a boost and you keep going, what do you think about those energy drinks?
They're the worst.
Ah,
The worst. Yeah, I actually have a friend who got quite sick, because he drank Red Bull
really?
all the time. Yeah, ended up with um, I forget exactly what it was. It had something in his intestine and was in the hospital for 3 days.
Seriously?
And
That's not
that's what
good.
they attributed it to. He cut cold turkey. He's been great since, but I say if you have to, because that's a serious addiction right there.
Hmm.
Buy it, have a few sips, and then maybe throw out the rest. I don't eventually you're gonna find things that replace that, and quite frankly, if all of these other things are dialed in and you're drinking the water, getting enough sleep, all of those things, you shouldn't need that afternoon boost.
Hmm.
So, I think if your other areas of your life are being managed, you won't need that.
Hmm. It's almost like if it's a sign if you do need that energy drink, something else is wrong.
Right.
You shouldn't have to have
Right.
it. Yeah.
We have natural energy flows throughout the day where you feel
Hmm.
on or off or maybe more focused or, your times where you're more productive. It's just the natural ebb and flow of the day. But if you're feeling like you're at the point where you need to pound a cup of coffee in the afternoon just to get through, or a Red Bull or Monster drink or any of those things, there's something else going on.
Hmm. Yeah, that makes sense. So, kind of along those lines, are there other foods that maybe are habitual in our American diet that kind of, you know, make us feel not great? That maybe we should be aware of, like these energy drinks.
Hmm. Well, that's also a loaded question.
Mm, sure.
Um, but
Everyone's like,
I
please don't say my favorite food.
Yeah. I mean, it's for me, it's basically anything processed because real food is always it's got the nutrients in it that you need to feel good. Whereas some of the other processed, quick out of the box foods, they're not as nutrient dense, so they might satisfy your immediate hunger,
Hmm.
but they're not going to give you the nutrients you need for good energy.
Yeah, yeah. What's the saying? Like the stuff in the middle of the grocery store is all the processed stuff, and the fresh is on the outside walls.
Yeah, shop the perimeter.
Shop the perimeter. There you go. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And then, I mean, it's even I say it's a loaded question because there are a lot of healthy foods too
Hmm.
that some people have trouble with. So I think it's just about um, really starting to pay attention to how you feel after you eat a certain
Hmm.
food.
Yeah.
And you'll know if that's a right food for you. Like for example, some people have trouble with dairy, some people have trouble with gluten, those types of things.
Hmm.
So
Yeah. Anything else in nutrition? Some tips, some advice?
not so much. No, I think I'm good.
Okay. Okay.
Good there.
So let's move on to exercise. I know it's something you're really into, and it's the ed rep lifestyle. It's you wake up early, you hit the road, you're in the van all day long. You're exhausted when you get home. Sometimes, or sometimes it's an overnight. It's not just an out and back. Sometimes you have shows that you go to that you're traveling overnight, maybe multiple nights, or your schools are just an overnight kind of trip. So, how in the world do you fit any kind of exercise into a really busy life where you feel exhausted all the time?
I think it's important to remember that exercise doesn't necessarily mean taking an hour out of your day to go do something at the gym,
Hmm.
so to speak. Exercise can happen throughout the day. So it's the little things that you do. Like, what do you do when you have an extra 15 minutes in your schedule? Are you sitting in the van, texting away, checking on orders, or do you give yourself a 15-minute mental break where you get out of the van, walk around, stretch your hip flexors, you know, just take a little short walk to get some steps in that day,
Hmm.
get your heart rate up a little bit, clear your mind, and go back in focused and energized. So I think just trying to find those tiny little pockets of time where you could fit something in. Some people do better with the organized exercise, and I know ed reps are up early. I live that lifestyle. I get it, but how about going to bed maybe a half hour earlier the night before, and then getting up just a half hour earlier in the morning to fit in a little bit of time, whether it's just walking around your yard, whether it's walking down the street and back. Maybe it's taking the time to stretch or do a quick 15-minute, you know, free yoga video off of YouTube, things like that. Ed reps are in their cars all day long sitting, and it's so bad for the body, for the
Mm.
back, for the hips. So any opportunity to release the hip flexors, to stretch the hips is going to help in the long term with low back issues, or even in the short term. I have this one spot in my back that when it starts to act up, I know it's a hip flexor issue. So just even taking 30 seconds to stretch that muscle relieves my back pain
Hmm.
immediately. It's pretty amazing. Shoulders are always hunched forward when you're driving, arms are always forward. So doing things to release the chest open. You can use a door jamb for an arm up and stretching your arm back. That'll help release the chest muscles. And then anything that you can do to strengthen the back of your body, glutes especially. So learning proper form for squats, and any opportunity you have just to do squats. This
Hmm.
sounds so silly, but while I'm making breakfast, I will literally do 10 squats in the kitchen. Um, it strengthens the glutes, which also helps strengthen the core, which I think is another huge thing. I mean, as ed reps, you're lifting heavy equipment often.
Yeah.
So keeping the core strong is super important. And maybe you start with a 10-second plank in the morning. Once you can do 10 seconds, maybe it's 20 seconds. And then you're up to a minute. Pretty soon you're doing 2-minute planks. And all that took was 2 minutes of your time.
Hmm.
But it's putting in the effort to further strengthen that core. And as you're driving around, you can actually try to push your stomach out and flex your core muscles. And as you tap on your belly, you should be able to feel those hard muscles under there.
Hmm.
That's actually strengthening your stabilizer, your very internal deep core muscles, which is in turn what protects your back and those other things.
That's interesting. You can even just do some exercise in the car, it sounds like.
Yeah. Yep. Yep. And weightlifting, people always think cardio is like the ultimate exercise. That's what exercise is cardio. And actually you get more bang for your buck with weightlifting.
Hmm.
So especially when you can do weightlifting in a way that gets your heart rate up a little bit. And that could be, I mean, literally like a quick 10 squats, 10 lunges on each side. Let's do 15 jumping jacks and do that circuit a few times. I mean, there's ways
Huh.
that you can get quick bouts of exercise in without spending a lot of time
Yeah.
doing it.
I have this funny image of ed rep walking up to school with two sousaphones on either side doing lunges as they walk into the
Yeah.
school.
Don't laugh. I've done it.
Whatever it takes. I was expected you would have like these pretty elaborate, you need to set aside half an hour to an hour a day to do this. But it sounds like it's pretty simple, actually. Little
No,
things.
it can be. It's just, yeah, it's little things. I mean, I think the stretching's as important as the actual exercise itself,
Hmm.
and just making sure, especially as you age, that your body stays healthy. I mean, it's really, as your muscles tighten, it starts to pull on your joints. So
Hmm.
eventually what happens as you age, and if you continue down the path of having, muscle functionality issues, too tight of muscles, it does affect your joints. And our body works like a chain. Once it starts affecting your knees, next it's going to start affecting your ankles, or vice versa. It works up and down your body. So
Hmm.
um so yeah, just taking those opportunities to recognize, I mean, sometimes it's just stopping for 5 seconds and doing a quick body scan and realizing where you feel tight, And then instinctively, you can figure out how to loosen those muscles up. And I will tell you, a lot of times the culprit is the hip flexors, which are those hip muscles. Your hip flexors actually go up through your hips, up into your abdomen. And oh, I didn't mention one phenomenal tool that we should all have easy access to is like a lacrosse ball or a tennis ball or something
Huh.
like that.
Okay.
When you start to feel, a lot of us hold tension in the shoulders, um, you can just jam that tennis ball right in there and it'll get the knots out, loosen you up
Do you
pretty
put
quickly.
it against a wall and
You
then
can do that
press
or
into
the
it? How do you do
floor.
it? Oh, the floor? Okay.
Yeah, either way. I use a lacrosse ball because it's a little bit gets in there a little bit deeper. You can also use it on your hips, so like
Hmm.
right in the sides of your hips. You never want to roll that on bone, but it for muscle.
Okay. Yeah. Wow. Yeah. After a long day on the road of driving, your body just feels terrible. I
Yes,
could see
that's a
that with.
fact. We're not meant to sit that long.
No.
It's actually worse than sitting on the couch.
Huh.
You know, because there's just the little repetitive motions you're making with your feet. I mean, anytime you can use cruise control, anytime you can, just move your body around a little bit in the car, um, it helps.
Yeah. Yeah. So, for people listening who are like, I'm going to make a change, I want to learn more. Do you have any resources that you find particularly helpful to learn more about nutrition and health and stretching and kind of all these things in life balance, all these things that we talked about throughout this episode?
Well, that's an interesting question. I'll have to get back to you on that one. I don't know. Maybe I could send you some things to put in
Yeah.
the show
Yeah.
notes. You just have to be very careful about where you're getting your information from online. So that's why
Mm,
I hesitate to say, "Oh, just go over to YouTube." Um, I have some great channels I use on YouTube for exercise. They're all free. I have a spin bike for winter so I can stay in biking shape when there's snow on the roads. So I found some great, like I like to do quick 15-minute intense. I don't have a lot of time in my day either, so 15 minutes is good for me. But it's got to be intense enough to get your heart rate to a certain point. So I have some good YouTube channels for that. Kaylee Cohen is the spin. Yoga with Cassandra with a K is great YouTube channel for yoga and stretching. What I like about hers is she's got 5-minute versions, 10-minute versions, hour-long versions, whatever you have. A lot of them are morning focused,
hmm,
which I think just really starts my day off really on the right foot. Anytime I do a yoga in the morning, I approach the day with more energy, more focus. I'm just happier, and I can tell that the effect that it has through my work and just through the way I interact with people during the day.
yeah. Okay. If you can think of it, if you email some of those links to me, I'll put them in the show notes
Okay.
and I'll gladly put them in there as resources. I imagine there's a bunch of podcasts out there. I mean, there's a podcast for everything, even ed
Yeah.
reps. So,
I think that's great.
so I'm sure there's lots of podcasts you can look up for any of these topics
Yeah.
to
And I
dig
would
in.
say for nutrition, if you're looking for something online, anytime you stumble across somebody who's telling you to cut out an entire food group, I would try to avoid that.
Hmm.
I know that there are a lot of trends towards that.
It's
But
changing all the time. It seems like.
yes.
Yeah.
But a healthy balance of protein, fat, and carbs are all needed. They all perform different functions within your body. So I think anything that tells you to 100% cut out carbs is going to be something you probably don't want to follow.
Hmm.
And really, it's the types of carbs that you're eating that make the biggest difference on how you're going to feel. So, beans are carbs, sweet potatoes, vegetables are technically carbs. So
Hmm.
eating the right types of carbs is what's going to really affect the way you feel, not necessarily cutting them out so you can lose weight. I mean, you may lose weight initially. Once you add those carbs back in, you're going to just go back to where you were. So
Hmm. Yeah.
it's not good for your body. They need all types of food groups.
Right. Plus, it's no fun taking out a whole
Yeah,
food group.
that's right. And that's why we don't cut out desserts 100%.
Right.
Have a cookie. Just don't have 50 of them.
Yeah. Yeah. Ah. Well, I really appreciate all of your time and these tips here. And I just kind of want to recap that the point of this whole discussion was something you said early on was just to feel your best self so that you help others in a better way. Yeah, I know so many of us have this service mindset where it's all about others, but you got to take care of yourself too. When I was an ed rep manager, I used to tell everybody, listen, you're not good to anybody burned out. You're not good to yourself or your family or your clients. Just take care of yourself. Take a moment. Take a vacation.
Right.
Something Americans are so bad at.
Yeah, I think we'd be remiss at not mentioning the stress factor in all of this and in health. I mean, I think that was a big contributor personally to my downfall in my health, and yeah, just finding ways to channel the stress in a healthy way, because you're always going to have stress. I mean, I can't I can't imagine the ed rep world these days. When I was doing it, their text didn't exist.
Mm,
So, just the boundaries that have been torn down, I think, between work and our personal lives because of things like cell phones and text. And
hmm
it's important that we come up with those boundaries now. We've got to have those boundaries. And we're here to serve, and we want to do the best we can, and we want to be available, but at the same time, it's got to be realistic, and you have to make time for yourself, because otherwise the burnout does happen, and then you're not good for anybody. If you put the boundary in place, that director is going to be fine. If
hmm
they may even respect you a little bit more. And then what you bring to the table the next day is a better version of yourself for that
Yeah.
director.
Yeah, I like that. I mean, let's be honest, we're not selling life-saving materials here. It's okay if sometimes someone gets the reads tomorrow.
Yeah. I mean, and it's hard because you're trying to make a lot of different interests happy. I mean,
Sure.
you've got the company you work for, you've got the band director, you've got the parents, you have administration, you have your family. You're trying to, it's a lot. You're getting pulled in a lot of different directions. So, just trying
Mm,
to find a way to put yourself into that mix. And it's okay to cut the noise down once in a while and
mm,
put up some boundaries and reconnect with yourself. It's the only way it's going to happen. I've even gone as far as scheduling things on my calendar.
hmm.
I've had to put eat lunch in my calendar because I forget to eat lunch sometimes. I get so involved in what
Yeah,
I'm doing.
yeah.
Um, but when the alarm goes off, I'm like, okay, eat lunch. Or take the dog for a walk for 15 minutes, because I come back with a million great ideas I thought about on that walk.
Mhm.
Just getting away from it will clear your mind.
Yeah, I totally agree. And the thing you said about the boundaries, especially with the variety of ways people get a hold of you, text messages, and obviously, it seems like nobody makes phone calls anymore, but phone calls, Facebook Messenger, emails, you name it. There's just a million ways to get a hold of you. And personally, one thing I find that's super helpful is to turn it all off sometimes, especially if you
Yes.
go on vacation. Don't check your work emails.
Yes, and an easy way to do that is to set the expectation with your clients and
Hmm.
with your coworkers and just say, "Hey, guys, I'm disconnecting. Like, I love you, but if you need something, here's how you get it." And that's all you have to do. And people will respect you for that. You'll
hmm
feel a lot better at the end of it. And your client's still taken care of because you've given them away. Your client, your band director,
hmm
your
hmm
director, whoever your customer will be taken care of because they have a way to get help. You're not leaving them high and dry. You have a support system there to help them. It's just not you.
Yeah, absolutely. And I find if you prepare people in advance, like, hey, I'm going to be gone this week, and you tell them in enough notice, they know you're gone. The likelihood of you coming back to so many emails is less because they know you're gone. They'll just wait till you get
Right.
back.
And another way to do it too is, just even disconnecting at night. It's always a great idea to try to shut down at least an hour before you're going to bed.
Mm,
First, just the screen time, the blue light can keep the chemicals that you need to go to sleep from doing what they need to do. So the melatonin production is affected. So just blue light glasses,
hmm,
they block the blue light, and it helps whether you use TV to wind down. But trying to put something more calming and not so stimulating on for television or with what you're reading. And then again, just disconnecting from the text. And if you're concerned about a customer not being able to get a hold of you when it's an emergency, I manage clients myself. I have my own business now, and I have several clients and I manage the technology behind their online businesses. And so, they're welcome to send me an email or we use Voxer, but
Hmm.
they know I'm not going to respond to it unless I see a 911, it's emergency, my website's down, whatever,
Yeah.
then I'll be available. It's my way of saying, I want to be here for you, but I have boundaries.
Mm. Janelle, I apologize. We didn't get into what you do now. Can you explain your business?
Yeah, so when I started my health coaching business, I had to learn a ton about marketing as a small business in the online space,
Mm.
and oh, it's this whole amazing, fascinating world, and I became obsessed. I realized I enjoyed it more than health coaching, and it's what I do. So I morphed my business into that. I've had my business almost 5 years now, and I do online marketing for small businesses. Basically, online course creators, online coaches, a lot in the holistic health field. Several of my clients are in the holistic health field.
Hmm.
But basically, anybody that develops an online course. So I set up the tech behind the marketing, sales and marketing funnels behind that.
Okay. Okay. Have you done anything in the music industry yet?
Not yet. Not
Okay.
yet.
Would you like to?
Oh, possibly.
I'll put a link to your website in the program notes so people
Awesome.
can see this.
Thank you.
So here's a question. So kind of the full circle. You worked for music and arts in the music industry for 23 years. You were go 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 go. Sounds like you kind of burned yourself out and needed to take care of yourself. You went into health and changed your life in a way. It sounds like, and now you're back into more of, I guess you could say, uh, business, corporate kind of thing. How do you feel now?
Oh, well, owning your own business is interesting, especially for somebody who is very driven and kind of a workaholic and a people pleaser. And all of these things we've talked about today are like, they're so, I wouldn't say more important, but it's really important to have a handle on them because
Hmm.
when you're running a business that you love and your income and your impact on the world is directly related to the work you're doing, you're driving the show, you're running the show, you're coming up with the ideas, you're doing the work. It's so easy to get sucked in, especially when you love I love my clients and I love the
Hmm.
work I do. It's just easy. So it's been a learning process for me because I got to that place. I took a year off and didn't work a lot. I moved to the mountains of Western Maryland and did a lot of mountain biking and kayaking and skiing and hiking and the things I like to do. But it was interesting as I started my business, all those same old habits, they start to creep up.
Hmm.
So, just being very much in focus with, okay, I'm starting to tip a little bit this way. And while there are going to be seasons, and it's okay for that for a few days, it's when it starts to continue, you got to rein it back in. And I think the biggest lesson I've learned is the boundaries piece
Hmm.
and setting up front what the expectations are for communication with clients and when I'll respond and when I'm available and when I'm not. So
Hmm.
it's been quite freeing actually to have the flexibility, and it's quite empowering too. To say, "Oh, wow, you can have a successful business and still have your health and joy and things that you love to do in life there as well."
Hmm. That's a great message.
Yeah,
So you feel like it's more sustainable now, doing what you're doing and feel
absolutely,
good.
absolutely.
Hmm. That's all good stuff. I really appreciate your time. A good lesson for everybody, just to take a second to really think about it. And I encourage everybody, if you want to learn more, there's so much information out there about every topic we talked about. I'll put a link to this book, Off Balance. It kind of helped me kind of think more carefully about what we've been talking about, and a big difference in my life. So, Janelle, thanks again. Really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me. It was awesome time. I always love coming back to, I mean, this is my beginnings, the music industry.
Mm.
A lot of fond memories, great relationships. I still have a lot of friends from the music and arts days. So anything I can do to help and, pay it forward to those that are coming up behind me.
Fantastic. Thanks again.
Thank you.
We hope you found the information in this episode useful and something you can use in your everyday life as an ed rep. If there is a topic you'd like to learn more about and have presented on a future episode of Ed Rep Radio, or you'd like to give us some feedback in general, please email us at edrepradio@eastmanstrings.com. To learn more about Eastman Music Company, go to our website, eastmanmusiccompany.com, or give your Eastman rep a call. Thanks, and drive safe.